You know, after the abysmal year that was 2016, I came into 2017 with the biggest hope of optimism. I predicted and prayed that we would get movies that improved from their mistakes and filmmakers would rise up to create true masterpieces that people would look fondly at as one of the greatest films to ever come out because of their genius filmmaking. And yes, for the most part, we have received incredible films that came out this year. However, we're not talking about them right now, for this year also had some absolute stinkers and crushing disappointments to go along with it. Yes, folks, like always in tradition, we are going down my list of the top 10 worst movies of the year. But don't worry, guys, because after this video, I will be uploading my top 10 best films of the year, so be prepared for that. This is the list that will feature movies that I have seen this year that I have been disappointed by, pissed off at, bored by, or even all of the above. Also, there are some movies that you want me to put on the top 10 list that aren't on my top 10, either because I didn't manage to see them, or I found 10 other movies that are way worse than them. But still, this is a list of my personal opinion of what I think are the worst of the worst, and I hope you guys enjoy the list regardless. So without further expedition, like a famous movie serial killer jigsaw, let's play a game. My name is Luke Nukem, and for today's game, we are going down the list of the top 10 worst films of 2017.
It's all about the game, and how you play it. All about control, and if you can take it. All about your debt, and if you can pay it. It's all about...
Now, you know I'm up for a solid mystery movie. I love getting involved with the characters, figuring out what they're doing, and what clues they have discovered along the way. For example, despite what a lot of critics may think, I was one of the few people who really enjoyed A Cure for Wellness for the mystery movie that it was. However, the same can't be said for this. You know, funny enough, I actually came into this movie wondering how bad this film was. Because after being really interested in the trailers that I saw, I then saw reviews of the movie saying it's one of the absolute worst films of the year. Then I saw the movie, and I can just tell you, they're absolutely right. This has to be one of the most boring, unengaging mystery thrillers I have seen in a theater. The movie was based on a book by Joe Nesbo and centers on Michael Fassbender's character, Detective Harry Hole.
That's what she said?
He and Rebecca Ferguson are on the hunt to stop the murderous acts of a serial killer named the Snowman, who kills people and makes snowmen out of the body parts of their victims. So much potential to be had in this movie, yet it falls flat on its face by the end of it. The plot is disjointed and built to nothing, which is sad because 10 to 15% of this movie didn't even reach post-production. The editing is all over the place, the characters you don't care for, and performances that are entirely wasted even with the likes of J.K. Simmons and Val Kilmer. This movie bombed so badly that when I walked into the auditorium, no one was there except for me and a middle-aged man. Yeah. That's about it. But at least I had the movie to myself, so there that was. Leave this boring waste of time out in the snow where it belongs. This next movie is not only an easy target, but it's what most people are declaring the worst movie of the year by default. And that, my friends, is... Between the producer who got his Popeye movie project canceled and the audience who had to go see the Emoji Movie, I can't decide who hates life more. Maybe both. Now, I can't really say that it's the worst film of the year or the worst animated film of all time. After all, it's not even worse than this. But yes, everything you heard about the Emoji Movie is true. From the animation looking completely bland to the story that completely rips off several other movies like Inside Out and Wreck-It Ralph. This movie is an animated atrocity not only to dumb the minds of millions and millions of children, but to promote products like Just Dance, YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, and several other apps on your phone. The worst part about all of this is that Patrick Stewart plays the poop emoji. Oh wait, no, he doesn't play an emoji. He plays an exact representation of what the film is. And that is poop. Coming in at number 8 is one of 3 movies trying to succeed in creating a cinematic universe. And by 3 different studios, might I add. So let's start with Sony Pictures and their monstrosity of a film called You know, it's a shame, really. You have a gigantic series of books created by Stephen King that fans have adored and cherished, and while I'm not really the biggest fan of Stephen King, I actually heard that the Dark Tower series is actually pretty cool. But what isn't cool is a company taking a beloved property and turning it into a half-assed 95-minute film and making a quick buck out of it without having any respect for the source material. And that, my friends, is exactly what you get with The Dark Tower. The plot is insultingly simplistic, and calling it generic would be an understatement. And the mythology that I'm guessing was very well explained and developed in all 8 books is completely rushed and makes little to no sense, to where you don't even get invested in the world that it's creating. The acting is wooden across the board, the CGI and the cinematography are ugly looking as can be, and the characters whatsoever have no likability, except for a few scenes with Idris Elba. I'll give him that. Do not watch The Dark Tower. Anyone who does has forgotten the face of their father, and if you got that reference, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, next up, this is a movie that I was completely looking forward to ever since I saw the trailers for this. I was completely hooked and ready for a good time with it. But I wasn't prepared for what was to come in this sadistic sequel. You don't even know how excited I was to go see this movie. I was incredibly hyped, not just because I saw the trailers wanting to have a good time, but I loved the first Kingsman. Now imagine everything you liked about the first Kingsman movie and watch it getting turned into a glorified turd right before your very eyes. And you get Kingsman: The Golden Circle, a rancid pile of trash that is another example of a studio telling a director, do what you want, and everyone will love it regardless. The script is completely lazy and makes little to no sense, the acting is poor, and actors like Jeff Bridges and Colin Firth are completely wasted and have nothing to do but to play very poorly written characters. The action is cartoonish and bloated, and the comedy is so juvenile and crass, to the point to where you feel like you're watching something out of a Dennis Dugan movie, especially with a running gag that involves Elton John. Manners maketh men, more like men maketh mess. You guys know I love monster movies. I like Godzilla, I like King Kong, I like Frankenstein, I love Dracula. But when they are made into something like this, it's completely unacceptable, because the next movie on the list is another movie trying to succeed in creating a cinematic universe.
Digging deep inside my soul to bring myself out of this goddamn hole. I rid the demons from my heart.
Hey class, Professor Luke Nukem here, and welcome to another lesson of how to destroy a cinematic universe in just 3 steps. For today's topic, The Mummy. Step 1. Hire an actor who's completely miscast in a movie where it constantly explains its horribly written plot to him. Step 2. Hire a director who wrote, along with his partner in crime, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and put him into a movie to where he puts nothing but cliches that we have seen from other adventure movies. And finally, step 3. Create a cinematic universe without making a good movie first and stopping the plot dead in its tracks to explain said universe in the middle of the film. That and also have terrible acting, bad dialogue, and mediocre effects. And there you go. Class dismissed, and have a nice day. Guys, you knew this movie was going to be on this list, so let's just talk about it and just get it over with.
How much rain can we make before we leave it all? I don't want it anymore.
I'm 2 movies into this soon-to-be trilogy, and I can't take it anymore. The first 50 Shades of Grey movie is god-awful. This one is even worse. It has all of the negatives that the last movie has, but done to a significantly worse degree. The acting is atrocious, the writing is compiled with subplots that don't add anything to the film, and the sex scenes, which the film constantly shows throughout the runtime, are more cringeworthy and boring than the last. Well, the good news is that the last one is coming out this year, and it's not a 2-parter. Thank God. I'm not a particularly huge fan of the genre, but I'm all for a director trying to do something with that genre and make something new and creative with it. But this, quite possibly, has to be one of the most incompetently made movies of this genre. That being... Everyone, I can't tell you how much of a disaster The Bye-Bye Man is. I really can't. I am completely baffled that someone put their time and effort into making something so excruciatingly agonizing. I can't. This movie is absolutely everything wrong with the horror movie genre, especially with movies about a boogeyman. The characters are bafflingly stupid, and their acting is some of the worst I've ever seen in a horror movie. The dialogue is simply appalling, and the entire mythology of the Bye-Bye Man and the story itself is so confusing and makes little to no logical sense. It's aggravatingly boring, and the scares are cliched, predictable, and pathetic. Characters walk through a dark room, boom, there's a loud noise and a jump scare. Characters walk through a dark hallway, boom, jump scare. Characters look away and look back at something, jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. My God, I'm so scared.
You scare me so bad. Oh, gosh, you scared.
There is nothing I liked at all from this. Nothing. Except for one unintentionally hilarious moment towards the end, and believe me, it was funny. But other than that, don't think it, don't say it, destroy it. Now, this was another movie that I was entirely interested in ever since the Comic-Con trailer. I was like, it looks alright, but it doesn't look like the worst thing ever. Then I saw the movie, and I did not like it whatsoever. And then, I had a Suicide Squad moment, to where the more I thought about it, the more I completely despised everything about this movie. Yes, people, it's another one of those times. So, in the words of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, let us ride to Camelot!
On second thoughts, let's not go to Camelot. It is a silly place.
Right.
Now look, I understand there are tons of directors who do their own interpretation of the King Arthur legend with examples like Monty Python and the Holy Grail and even Excalibur, but this one has to be the worst by far. At long last, Guy Ritchie has finally made a movie that is completely bad, if not worse, than swept away. King Arthur Legend of the Sword, or King Arthur Legend of the Board, not only fails as an action movie, or even a King Arthur movie, it fails as a movie, period. This feels more like a highlight/demo reel of all the techniques and motifs that Guy Ritchie has ever learned in his previous work. And in this movie, he reuses these motifs over and over and over again. Like the overuse of the slow-mo speed-up, slow-mo Zack Snyder motif. And the big Guy Ritchie gimmick of, okay, we're gonna tell you the story as it's being shown on the screen. I mean, I really liked it the first time in this movie, and it's fine after a while. But by the 5th or 6th time they do the same exact motif, you are just yelling at the television saying, just tell a story. The actors are completely devoid of any charisma, taking everything way too seriously. The editing feels like the film reels are stuck inside of a blender operated by Edward Scissorhands, and the action scenes are so chaotically stupid, and because of the terrible editing, they either feel like a cutscene from a video game, a Zack Snyder wannabe with the slow-mo speed-up slow-mo motif, or just a montage. The CGI is noticeable and unfinished, and the violence, don't make me laugh. This is some of the most tame, laughable violence I've ever seen. The worst part about all of this is that Guy Ritchie's next project is a live-action Disney movie of one of my favorite Disney films. You want to know what that is? Aladdin. Thank you, Disney. Thank you. About 10 years ago, there came a motion picture blockbuster that was incredibly divisive but took the world by storm. Some were intrigued to see what would happen next, while others braced for the terror that was on the other side. However, after the first installment, the franchise started to stagnate after getting worse and worse and worse. Now, we are officially here with the 5th movie in the franchise, and I can tell you without question, this movie is every bit as bad as the last one. And speaking of King Arthur, wow, a Transformers movie's on the top 10 worst list, aren't you surprised? But anyway, the real main reason why I put this movie so high on this list was because I was requesting this from Michael Bay ever since Transformers Dark of the Moon, and mostly Transformers Age of Extinction. That was the ability to trying to make a movie about the Transformers without having the humans be the center of attention, trying to have a script that is not entirely complicated, and trying to eliminate the childish and arrogant humor that we have seen from the vast majority of all the Transformers movies. Unfortunately, he does none of the above, because all this franchise really cares about is milking the franchise to the ground just so they can make a whole lot more money in the foreign market. Swell work, China. The acting is vacuous and bland, the action scenes couldn't be more nauseating, and the visual effects are about as noticeable and obvious as its predecessor. And the whole Nemesis Prime subplot that was implemented into the movie only happens for about 9 minutes tops, and resolves in a climax so coincidentally moronic that it was barely close to being a Save Martha moment scene. The last night is the last straw I will ever have for any Transformers movies. See what I did there? However, there is a spin-off about Bumblebee coming out this year, and it stars John Cena. Alright, let's not beat around the bush here. You know exactly why you came here, and you know exactly why I made this video. It's because of this film right here. A film so evil, so sadistic, so demonic, and so manipulative to a core audience that it came from the darkest, blackest pits of hell, just to appeal to the unwashed masses and all the helpless souls out there. The #1 worst film of the year, without hesitation, is none other than this absolute filthy abomination known as No surprises here. What else could it be? Not only was this a movie that thankfully got me a whole lot more reviews and a lot more subscribers than ever before, which, by the way, thank you everyone, but this was a movie that is along the likes of Suicide Squad, Man of Steel, and Batman v Superman as the absolute antithesis of the superhero genre. Ugh, where do I even start with this soulless, callous abomination? Well, let me display my full and real thoughts about the movie without having to quote Mark Kermode or Movie Bob like I did in my last review. This is a franchise that is in complete and total chaos, trying to compete with a different company that is doing way better with their franchises so far, and everyone at Warner Brothers knows it. While a lot of critics and reviewers like me are watching these movies, and we tell people that these movies are terrible and they should rewrite the script from scratch like I said in the beginning of the review for Justice League, just make a Man of Steel sequel and that will fix the rest of the problems. But what do I and the rest of the reviewers out there get in return? We get called fanboys, that our reviews suck, that we don't know any better because we're all Marvel fanboys. Let me establish something for you guys. We don't tell people that they don't know any better because they say otherwise. We don't go out of our way to sign idiotic petitions, not only to shut down Rotten Tomatoes for banning Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman, and deservingly so, and a petition to have people watch Justice League 6 times. 6 times. Just so it can reach its budget back. I have said this ever since the Worst of 2016 video. I watch movies not just because they have some of my favorite characters or favorite superheroes, but because they are legitimately good films. Some of my favorite movies of all time are both from Marvel and DC. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and Zack Snyder's Watchmen. I wanted to like Man of Steel ever since 2013, ever since it was announced. But then after that, the franchise itself ran into a grave it can never escape from. Remember how I said about Transformers the last night, how it was a cinematic embarrassment? This is that twofold. The writing and storytelling is outlandishly preposterous, ludicrous, and insultingly panders to the lowest common denominator. The characters are completely lifeless and are devoid of heart or passion. Their chemistry is so sporadic and random, and the decisions they make render them completely unlikable. Ben Affleck could be not more disinterested as Batman, always looking like he doesn't want to be there. Gal Gadot literally acts like she's reading a script out loud. It feels like a kindergarten reading session every time she's acting on screen. Ray Fisher and Jason Momoa have zero screen presence and have no charisma whatsoever. Ezra Miller is nothing more than an annoying comedy dispenser, and everyone from Kieran Hines with his embarrassing role as Steppenwolf all the way to Amy Adams and Billy Crudup are completely wasted. The dialogue is baffling, the tone is incredibly inconsistent, the attempts at humor are pathetic, and the action scenes are so nauseating, boring, and bloated that I literally short-circuited for about a few seconds as it was going on. The CGI is incredibly unfinished, and not to mention the incredibly stupid subplot of reviving Superman back to life and showing him in all of his CGI missing mustache looking glory. But you want to know the worst part about all that is? The DC Cinematic Universe and Warner Brothers constantly say to critics, "Quit nagging on us, you're just nitpicking, we're making it for the fans." And here's the reality for you guys. They don't care about you. All they care about is making a franchise of terrible movies out of your hard-earned cash just so they can catch up to another franchise who's doing better than them in the long run. There are no other words to say about Justice League other than this. Don't buy it. Don't rent it. Don't watch it. Don't even pirate it. Just stay away from this travesty at all costs, because if you don't, you're only adding part of the problem and making it so much worse for everyone. And that is why Justice League is the worst movie of 2017. Woo! That was a good one. So, that was my list of the top 10 worst movies of 2017. But don't worry guys, if you thought all hope was lost, get ready for my best films of 2017. And believe me, you're gonna love this list more than you're gonna love this one. And get ready, because it's gonna be awesome. Everyone, comment below and let me know what are your 10 worst films of the year. Find me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and also everyone, if you want to see more stuff like this, be sure to subscribe for more. My name is Luke Nukem, and you, my friends, have been blown away.
I don't think I can stomach any more of this garbage.
Exactly.
Same here.
Words out of my mouth.